right in the linebacker spot where he belongs as that rover hybrid linebacker, strong safety position that he is great at. That's where he belongs. He doesn't belong on the edge. He doesn't belong in the slot. He doesn't belong in a press position. He belongs in the middle, roving around, trying to find the ball. And that's what he's been. When they finally decided, let's just do what let's work to his strengths instead of setting him up for failure, then he becomes the Sorensen that we've seen in the past. And this is his 8th season. He's on a 1-year contract with us. He's been beat to death by every fan in the kingdom and fans outside of the kingdom for the last 8 weeks. And like you said, Caleb, it wasn't his fault. He was put in those positions by his coach.
And that's one thing as a fan, and I've learned. I've watched a lot of Chiefs football. I've seen a lot of losses. And Charles, I guarantee you've seen them, and JP has definitely seen them. What I've realized when it comes to situations like the Bob Sutton, as harsh we can be on the players, we have to look in the mirror and look at, okay, we can blame the players all day. We can blame a Philip Gaines, but we need to be looking at the coordinator. We need to be looking at Bob Sutton. Why was Philip Gaines out there? I'm being serious. We need to look at Spags. Why was he having Darren Lee out there playing the year one Super Bowl when he really wasn't contributing on defense? He was mainly a special teams guy. I know he traded a 6th-round pick, but he didn't really do much to help at that time. Looking now at Mike Hughes, he stepped it up some, but he's kind of struggled in certain instances, especially specifically when you're looking with Sorensen and Neiman. So, but what this just shows me is like this: there's going to be a time, and JP and we said this on our show. The Chiefs defense, we're just going to accept weeks 1 through week 8. There are going to be some horrific numbers. There's some horrific numbers. They'll turn around. Also, if the Chiefs ever lose to the Titans in the regular season, we know great things are going to happen because every time they lose to the Titans, and Charles will probably attest this, everyone's pissed, but then they'll build it back up, and then we're happy again.
Yeah, yeah. It never fails. I mean, Charles, who probably you've seen it. You've been around long enough. I mean, I'm not saying you're old or anything, but you're older than Caleb, and you're almost as old as me. I'm just kidding. You're not. But it's, I remember back in the day, standing on the field and watching Derek Thomas and Neil Smith and all these guys do things that they did that no one else could ever do. And I look at this defense now and I think we added Ingram, which inevitably just changed the whole defensive line. Okay, it just added to what we had, what we needed. It amped up Clark's play. It amped up Jones's play. It amped up Reed's play. Everybody is playing their role to the best of their ability, and it's almost damn near perfect. And you tell me, because I've mentioned this numerous times on the show, and I've said it on Twitter, and a couple of people have gotten especially guys that really don't understand the game. They've argued about it, but it's kind of like a chess game. When your defensive line breaks down, your secondary falls off their assignments because they're trying to make up for what your defensive line is not doing. Or not covering. So when that happens, they fall off their man, and then all hell breaks loose. So, it leaves the field wide open for whatever that quarterback wants to do. Wide receivers are wide open, tight ends are open. Things just happen, and that's when we fall apart. And that's kind of what went on it was really last year and this year with our offensive or our defensive line. We didn't have nobody to stop the run. We had nobody we had no pass rush. We didn't have anybody on the edges to really help. We had no interior guys to help Chris Jones or Frank Clark. And now we have that. And even with Turk, when he comes in and he rotates in and out, he is a force. So when you look at all of this and you see how our defensive line has just, I guess, all come into its own with the addition of one player, well, really two, I guess, when you consider Jaron Reed, but adding that one edge rusher changed the whole line and how it's made the entire secondary better. What do you think? What's your opinion on that?
I mean, my thoughts on the Ingram pickup are, before we had a bunch of guys on the edge. I mean, I'm going to start by talking about Frank Clark. Like Frank Clark has over the course of the last 4 weeks been. I mean, he looks like he looked on the Super Bowl run 2 years ago.
Yes.
He's looked incredible, and whether or not he's racking up sacks or not, he's still impacting the game. Like that's the thing about these defensive linemen. Like you look at a Jaron Reed, and you look at Jaron Reed's stat sheet, it's not going to blow you away. You're not going to be like, oh man, 10 and a half. He didn't have 10 and a half sacks. He doesn't have a bunch of pressures. He didn't have a bunch of tackles. But what these guys are doing is impacting the flow of the game, and Frank Clark's doing that. But the reason Frank's able to be so free is because, one, with Ingram there, you can line Chris Jones and Frank Clark up on the same side of the ball, and that's trouble for any offensive line. I don't care if it's the '90s Redskins or whoever. It doesn't matter. That's a problem to try to block those two guys on the same side of the line. But what Ingram does so well, and he did it tonight, and even still got a sack after he did it. But I've not watched a play yet where he gets blown off the ball and the edge of the defense shifts where he's at.
Correct.
He sets it, and it's there. Going that way is not an option for a running back. Scrambling that way is not an option for the quarterback. He bottles it up because he's so powerful and he's so explosive right off the line of scrimmage. There's just, if you watch his inside arm on the outside shoulder of an offensive lineman, he gets it and he's not letting go. And he may not rip him off and he may not get to the quarterback, but he made an impact right there by setting that edge.
Right.
He does that better than really anyone I've seen since Tamba and Justin Houston. I mean, I know, granted, that's not a long time ago, but those guys were really good at that, especially Houston, especially like 2014, 2015, Justin Houston.
Top 10 defense.
I mean, yeah, but we didn't have that before. Mike Dana does good things. Alex Okafor does good things. Chris Jones, when he was playing outside, was doing some good things. We didn't have someone consistently doing that and letting Frank kind of do his thing on the other side and letting that. I mean, the rotation doesn't have to be the same every time, but where we're putting guys and plugging them in now, it's working. And we have more freedom because we have that, kind of stalwart, just rock out there on that end when we have Ingram in the game, and it's paid off. But one thing I noticed, I don't know if you guys saw this tonight, but we were playing a lot with Okafor and Dana at the ends, and Reed and Noddy, and kind of like rotating. Chris Jones and Frank Clark were not on the field a lot in the third quarter. Did you guys notice that?
I noticed that. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, because the defense was struggling a little bit, and that would make sense now. And I'll turn it over to you, Charles, in a second. But from what I'm guessing, the reason why they probably did that was just give some reps, and they figured we can beat the Broncos. Let's just see what these other guys can do.
Yeah,
yeah.
I forgot. Oh yeah.
Also, probably why Sorensen and Neiman were getting so many snaps in the second half too. I mean, they were playing well, but normally if it's a tight game, you got to imagine that you see more Willie Gay, Nick Bolton, Chris Jones, Frank Clark, those guys.
And one thing I would add to your statement, Charles, because you were correct on everything. Melvin Ingram was probably one of the best in-season trades we've seen this season that Veach has done. Because when you look at this from a standpoint, his first snap against the Cowboys, he had a pressure and was already in the backfield. When he did that, I knew the defense was going to turn around because I'd never seen that intensity on a Sunday afternoon like that before, 325 game. I mean, literally, I felt the intensity through the TV. I mean, it was crazy. I was like, wow, this guy really just helped our defense. And when you look at it in the day, I mean, there was one play where a Raiders running back won him. He basically popped him off, and he's still standing there like a giant. I'm just like, wow. Yeah. So, I mean, this defensive line is great. The only issue I'm concerned with is that whenever they're getting hold, they really can't seem to get pressures. And and we don't ever seem to get calls. It's really weird to me personally, just when you look at all the games from actually last couple of seasons, Chris Jones gets hold literally every game. Frank Clark, now Melvin Ingram. So it's kind of like there's no give or take.
They don't like us.
They
don't like us. They don't.
No, nothing would surprise me. And I think just kind of at this you're not wrong. I think at this point, they just got to get as much pressure as they can. But having athletic linebackers such as Willie Gay and Nick Bolton, who are out there, phenomenal. I think it'll help.
Well, you can't. I mean, here's the thing. They just don't fucking like us. Sorry. They just don't like us. Here's the thing. You don't have somebody handing them a little slip cash under the pocket. They don't have any of that kind of stuff that they had going on, in the East Coast. So but that went on for 20 years. So they don't like us. They don't like the fact that we're honest players. We're an honest team. We're doing it the right way. We had Breezy that wasn't afraid to speak his mind when it came to the calls that he got. I actually interacted with him on Instagram yesterday, as a matter of fact. And I told him, I said, you rubbed off on Sneed. I said, you gave him some pointers that he's taken and he's running with them. And I'm glad you did. I said, I wish you were back. I miss your game. I said, but you taught him well, because Sneed has got that intensity and he's got that aggressiveness that Breezy has. And I think it's going to probably intensify as he gets a little older. He's one of the best young CBs in the league, if not the best young CB in the league. And I think it's just going to get better and better as he gets, more acclimated. For a guy that's been injured and has had limited game time in his young career, it's his second season in the league, he is amazing. I mean, the kid's just got natural talent, natural ability. It's a God-given talent. He's phenomenal in my opinion, but I think he had a really good mentor when it came to Breezy, and he's learned a lot from him. But when you look at what, going back to what you were saying, I agree with you. I think that if Ingram would have signed with us in the off season, things would have been different. Now, there was reasons why he didn't sign with us. One, it wasn't just money. He wanted to play here. He didn't pass the Chiefs physical. Okay, it was the eye test. It was that simple. His ankle wasn't great. His knee wasn't great. They were both kind of shredded. I was told that then. There's been rumors going around. He was here twice. We passed on him twice. Why the hell did we do it now instead of then? You got all these armchair coaches that would think they know it all. It had absolutely nothing to do with that. It was the fact that the Chiefs they weren't going to give up we didn't have a ton of money back then, and we weren't going to give up a bunch of money on a what if, just in case he wasn't going to be able to make it, in case he wasn't going to be able to heal up. We didn't know. They didn't know. And they are very strict. They've always been very strict on the eye test. So if a player's been injured and he's not completely healed up yet, they're not going to take that chance. It's similar to like an OBJ situation or anyone else that's been injured and is not 100%. We're not going to go out and dump a bunch of money on somebody that you don't know if there's going to be able to play in the next 6 weeks. What good's it going to do us? Honestly, what good's it going to do us in week 8 or week 9 to sign somebody that you don't know if they're going to be able to play between week 9 and week 17? Absolutely
I guess,
none.
And I don't know if you guys would agree with me, but I think they were maybe trying to avoid a Sammy Watkins situation.
Exactly.
Sammy, as great as he was, he's only there for half the season.
Exactly. And weirdly enough, I don't know, but Sammy was hurt a little bit. I mean, he's had a couple of minor injuries this year. But weirdly enough, this is the best season he's had since he's been in the league. Almost injury free for the entire season so far. I think he only missed one game or a half a game since he's been with the Ravens, and we couldn't get that luck with him. I mean, it was every year he was missing a few games here and there. Now he did play 14 games one season with us. I think that was at 19, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
But Veach is very methodical, and he's not going to give up money and take a chance on someone that you just don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. And that's a smart move on any smart GM would take. I'll put it this way. There's not a lot of smart GMs out there because they're taking chances on players that they don't know whether they're going to make it or not. And Veach is a smart GM. He's done it the right way. And look where we're at. In almost every category right now, our defense is top 10. Top 10 in points allowed. Our pass rushes went from 31st to, I think, 13, if I'm not mistaken. Tonight was the first 100-yard rusher we've allowed in 4 weeks.